Okay, we have a fast, furious, and busy big broadcast today. Um, because I overbooked. We have some great guests with us today, and we're going to be joined by IQ Al Rizzoli here in just a few. We have got the man about town, Mr. Dan Perkins, with us today. By the way, I need to find out who Dan's uh, designer is for his outfits. He's got a great shirt on today. If you're watching us on any of our outlets, big
I'm my
sheet
own
drum roll.
designer.
Hey,
I'm my own designer.
you're your own designer, baby. And then, of course, we've got the man with all the answers. He even knows what I'm getting for Christmas this year. Frank Fernuccio from USA Gut Policy. Frank, let's start this out. There is now people on TikTok saying that when they get their EBT benefits cut off on Saturday, they're just going to start eating Trump voters. What in the world is going on here, my friends?
Well, perhaps they should contact Chuck Schumer directly because we can talk about policy issues all we want, but the reality of it is this is Chuck Schumer being frightened by a threat from his left side, with AOC coming hot and heavy, potentially replacing him, winning over him in a Democrat primary to be the senator from the state of New York. This entire shutdown, which is really not over a lot of substance, is basically Chuck Schumer trying to prove how tough he is and that he's not going to back down and give in to the Republicans. That's what this is all about. And it's pretty tragic because whether you're talking about air traffic controllers not being paid, people not getting EBT benefits, the Army not getting their pay, all this is simply because Chuck Schumer is worried about being primaried by AOC. What a farce.
Dan, fill
Yes,
us in
sir.
here, baby.
Okay, I've been talking about this since the last time. I didn't get a chance to get to it last week when we were on, but I've been talking about it all week. I think we have a responsibility as commentators, news personalities, whatever we are, we have a responsibility to try and help educate our listeners as to what the real issue is here. In my opinion, this is the real issue. The Democrats under Obama passed Obamacare. They had control of the House and the Senate, and they didn't get one Republican to vote for it. And Obama told us the following: if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and it's going to save you thousands of dollars a year. We, on the other hand, said, bullcrap, that's not true. It ain't going to happen that way. And you're going to see a decline in service, and you're going to see a escalation in prices. The $1.5 trillion on the table is the penalty that the American taxpayer has to pay for the ineptitude and the stupidity of the Democratic Party to pass Obamacare. Because if they didn't get the $1.5 trillion, the American people who are on Obamacare could not afford to buy it. So we're paying ransom because the Democrats screwed up and they don't want to have the American taxpayer pay the real cost, which they never told us the truth what it was going to be. And what Trump is trying to do is to say, look, this is not going to be a one-time shot. It's going to happen again and again and again. We've got a program that is the deepest hole. You realize that $1.5 trillion, if we have to go into debt to do it, is almost 5% of the outstanding debt of the United States to finance this one program that the Democrats screwed up. That's what this is about. It's not that it's important that the individual in play, Mr. Schumer, Frank is absolutely correct. he sees the horses coming behind him, and he's afraid that if he doesn't do anything and keeps us out, he has a chance against AOC. I think that is a false mistake on his part. He has more power and influence in the state of New York, which is what he should be concerned about, not the hell with the national. If he's got a serious problem about getting primaried out, he's got to focus on the resources. He's been majority leader, minority leader for a long time. He's got a lot of people in his pocket that will come to the table for him. And I think he's overplaying, or the media is overplaying, the risk that Chuck Schumer thinks he's under from getting primaried by AOC.
So the thing that I've been trying to figure out, maybe you guys can educate me on this, is why in the world are these guys like Chuck Schumer and all these other people? They remind me of the Skeksis from Dark Crystal. They just don't ever want to leave. What shouldn't he be like at home doing something? Right.
Well, you're talking about the geriatric leadership of the Democratic Party, whether you're talking about Nancy Pelosi, whether you're talking about Chuck Schumer, and a host of others. The fact is they don't want to give up on power. To some extent, they believe that the young Turks coming up behind them are really horrendous, and they're afraid to let them into the tent. So there's a lot of factors involved there. The problem is, unlike the Republican Party, the Democrats have not really developed a farm team. Their pool of candidates is absolutely atrocious. One of the younger candidates that they have being discussed for president in 2028 is, of course, Buttigieg. Buttigieg, you might recall, was Secretary of Transportation, who decided to take a several-month vacation at a time when the nation was facing major transportation crises, particularly the East Palatine situation. There's really no one there. Gavin Newsom is a disaster. I don't think he would do very well at all. AOC, we all know about that. So who are you going to take? Where are you going to go with this? There's really not much the Democrats have. And so the geriatric leadership wants to keep their hands on power. They've made a lot of money. They've had a lot of personal success at the expense of the people of the United States, and they're not willing to move aside. And they've got no one really to move aside for that's of any quality.
What I would like to add to what Frank is saying is that a broadcaster from England was interviewing Kamala on her book. And she got Kamala very upset because she said, by the way, former vice president, it appears that you are third on the ballot behind your friend, the governor, Newsom, and Pete is number 2, and you're number 3. You're behind Pete. And she was very put off by the idea that this person was talking about what her ranking was, because she's saying and not saying that she's going to run for the nomination again in 2028. I agree with Frank. I don't see how we're going to get Gavin Newsom as the candidate, no matter what he's saying. He lies too much and gets caught too much lying to be a credible candidate. Pete, question is really, and in a sense, I think Kamala was right when she said what it really came down to as decision was America ready to have a black female president and a gay vice president on the same ticket? Or were they ready to get there? And she questioned whether or not that was in fact possible. And so I think that Frank is correct. And if AOC is the lead dog, that dog's not going to hunt very much, because I don't see her, but anything getting tied in knots in a debate with J.D. Vance. she's going to,
Yeah,
she's,
and on top of which, they also have a California problem. Whether you're talking about Kamala or whether you're talking about Governor Newsom, the fact is California is a disaster. It's a state that had just about all the advantages you could want: great climate, great resources, and so forth. And
mhm.
the Democrats in California have really screwed it up. And you can almost see, and I think I've jokingly said this before in the program, Dan, Jim, I think we could get rich by printing up bumper stickers for the Republican Party saying, "Make New York like California, vote Gavin Newsom in 28." I
Mhm.
think it would be a bestseller. And I think that's really part of the problem the Democrats have. They are really tied into California. There's no, California is the biggest state in terms of economy. And the fact of the matter is, to screw up a state with so many advantages like California, and to think that those same people who screwed up California now want to run the United States of America, I think that frightens the bejesus out of the American people.
So
Yep.
IQ, what do you think about this, baby?
He's absolutely right. The only trouble now is when they elect Zohran, it will be the best thing that happened to the Republican Party. In 2020, they will lose completely. In 2028, they will lose completely. Because by 2028, New York will be bankrupt. So the Republicans will have the best chance in their life if Zohran is elected mayor. What do you think?
Hey, don't sound so enthusiastic there, buddy. I live in New York. I've got to deal with this thing firsthand. No, I think that
No, I know.
I look, the fact of the matter is we've seen American cities like Detroit go belly up using this philosophy. We see what's happening right now in Chicago. Heck, we've seen this on the national level. You know, if you go back to the pre-Chavez era in Venezuela in the early 1990s, Venezuela was the richest country in South America, one of the most prosperous countries on the world. It sits atop an ocean of oil. The socialists took over, and Venezuela became a basket case. The same thing will happen to the city of New York. And clearly, that's a harbinger of what's to come with Democrat rule if they ever took back the Senate, the Congress, or God forbid, the White House.
You are using rational thinking, and this is where you're failing. We are not talking about people like you, or like Dan, or like myself, or Jim. We're talking about people who have been indoctrinated, 3 or 4 generations of young people in America, indoctrinated to self-hate and to think capitalism is the worst thing, when in fact capitalism is the only way hundreds of millions of people were elevated to a higher level of income.
Well, if you look at the trends, though, going back to the last presidential election, while the young are still a problem, because exactly you're right, they have been poorly educated, they have been indoctrinated, in fact, but they are starting to wake up. I think you see this with the Charlie Kirk movement and Turning Point USA. You saw this in the statistics for President Trump in the last election. And interestingly enough, young males, particularly, are turning far more conservative. So I think there's cause for optimism in that sense.
When we
I agree
just,
with. Sorry,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry. No, go
No,
on.
no,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
because one point I want to mention on the
Sure.
international state of continental America, you're right, but we're discussing specifically New York. Do you honestly believe Zohran will fail? I think he will win.
I'm not talking about whether he's going to fail or lose or win the election. I'm talking about what the results will be for the city of New York. New York has two sets of industries. One is called the fire industries. It stands for finance, insurance, and real estate. Now, it has a second top income gainer as well for the city, and that is the tourism trade. But the tourism trade depends in large part on the largesse of the fire industries. They support the Broadway plays. They support the museums that bring so many tourists into our city. And if you start to see Zohan Mandami chase the fire industries out, that's going to chase the culturals out, which means there's nothing left of the economy of New York City. And that's where it's going to fall apart. And that's where you're going to see, by the way, a real change in the attitudes of people, even in big, bad liberal New York. Look, if you break down New York small businesses, a lot of that is Latino. They're very capitalist oriented, very small business oriented. You're going to see a big loss of support for the Democrats, even in New York, if there is a Zohan Mandami election. And that'll have coattails across the country.
I agree with you, but the damage will be done. That's what I'm getting at. 2 3 years of Mamdani will destroy New York completely
No,
and
I
utterly.
don't think you're wrong at all. I don't think you're wrong at all on that.
Thank you.
That's the
That's all I'm
price.
saying.
That's the price that New Yorkers will have to pay by casting their votes for him.
Correct.
They-
Same thing
they-
with yeah, you're right, 100%.
One of the things that we try and teach our children, hopefully, is that the actions that we do have consequences. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. If the city of New York votes for Mondavi to become the communist mayor of New York, they're responsible for that, and they're responsible for the outcome of that. Whether they like it or not, they can't blame it on Pennsylvania or New Jersey or California or Texas or Florida. It's the responsibility of the people who voted him in, because they are the only people that could vote him in. By the way, while we were talking on the air, there was just a release that came out that since the presidential election of November last year to the end of September, 400,000 new Republicans registered in the state of Florida.
Wow,
400,000.
that's fantastic. That's really good news. The trouble is they will blame it on Trump anyway, no matter what. No,
Well,
honestly, really.
there's one other thing we can't forget also, and it's what the face of the Democratic Party has become. And let's go to Virginia for a moment. Jay Jones is the Democrat candidate for Attorney General in that state, and he has recently said, or said in the past, that he hopes his opponent gets shot, and that he hopes his children get shot.
Right.
Now, that's bad enough. But what's even worse is that the Democrat Party still has refused to divorce itself from Jay's candidacy. Just as in New York, you would assume even the hard left is more rational than an outright socialist anti-Semite like Zohan Mandami, and yet they continue to endorse this man. So this is what you're seeing is the face of the Democrat Party, which is why I think they're going to doom themselves in 26 and 28.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree, and I think that we saw today. I don't know whether you saw the release or not this morning, Frank, about Comer and his committee issuing a
Yes.
100-page letter to or report to the Attorney General in the Justice Department, believing that many of the pardons that Joe Biden gave in the remaining days of his presidency should be voided because he didn't comply with the process. And and because the auto pen was used indiscriminately with nobody following it. And I wrote that story at least 6 months ago, that I believe that the auto pen was a much bigger problem that it was currently being talked about. And now we're looking at the Justice Department for the first time in the history of our country being asked to look at presidential pardons being manipulated away from the president, and the president is the only one who can sign them and order them. And so the next question, I think, is about, or what they used to say, Frank, the other shoe to drop. I've done some analysis of what the number of pardons that have taken place and what the average price of a pardon is and the pardoning process. And I suspect, I don't have any proof yet, I suspect that what we're going to see is the Justice Department is going to uncover a pay for play, and that the Biden family handsomely generated income on the pardon issue.
I think there's an even larger issue regarding the auto pen. Is the legislation that President Biden's auto pen, I should say, signed, are those legitimate pieces of legislation? Were they really signed by the President of the United States?
Right. That's what the comment was also talking about, the looking at bills too. If he didn't sign them, if somebody else signed them, or they used the auto pen without his knowledge, then he's claiming that those pieces of legislation need to be looked at. So we've got a Justice Department who I think is being very aggressive, which it should be, and it's going to be a very interesting thing to see what happens when this piece of the information gets on Pam Bondi's desk. And it's going to be another disappointment. I'm sorry, Jim.
Go ahead, baby.
Another disappointment of the Democratic Party in its leadership and its lack of confidence in any new leadership to come along to lead them out of the wilderness. I think it's all a series of things that are happening that they're not paying attention to.
And the folks who would leave them out of the wilderness have been tossed out of the party. We saw what happened to Joe Manchin.
Mm-hmm.
Fetterman is being pushed out piece by piece. Tulsi Gabbard left the party. You
Right.
know, so all the folks who could have straightened out the Democratic Party have left the Democratic Party or are being pushed out.
Right. Agreed.
So, Frank, before we let you go, my friend, how do we get in touch with you online? Talk to us about the radio show this weekend, everything.
Well, you can go to usagovpolicy.com, which is our website. You can catch our latest research articles and our show on that website. If you missed it on your local station, just go to usagovpolicy.com.
Fantastic. So what do you have this weekend?
We are going to be talking to Todd Sheets, and it's actually a fascinating topic, somewhat different for us. One of the topics that barely gets discussed in the national news is the farming crisis. Our family farms are vanishing faster than you can, wave a stick at it. And China is buying up a lot of that land. And we're going to be talking to a fellow who has just wrote a book named Todd Sheets called On Wealth and Progress. And he is going to be telling us about the plight of the American family farmer and how it's getting worse by the day.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you making time for us today. Thanks for being on, my friend. We're going to go to our next guest. Sheriff Richard Mack is going to be with us. Frank, I really appreciate the time, brother.
Great being with you. Take care.
So Sheriff Mack joins us live here on our big program, and he is absolutely amazing. He has been doing all sorts of different things in the world, and he just seems to be kicking ass and taking names. Sheriff Mack, thank you for joining us today, because you're a busy man.
Well, I don't know if that's good news or bad news. I would love to work myself out of a job, and I mean that entirely. I would love to retire finally and just leave this to whomever is left over, and leave it to all the sheriffs who are going to stand and protect our country from all tyranny and all abuse. And they're going to finally go after the real criminals, the judges and the IRS and the rest of the traitors in Washington, D.C.
Fantastic. So I want to start out with Dan Perkins. Dan, I know you probably got some questions here for Sheriff Mack.
Sheriff Mack, thank you for joining us today. And I wanted to let you know that I've been doing some research, not on you specifically, but the difference between the chief of police in a city and the sheriff in the county.
Yeah.
From what I can gather, sir, a huge percentage of the sheriffs in the United States are elected by the people. And a huge percentage.
About 98% are, yes.
Right. And it's almost 98% of the chiefs of police are not elected by the people. they're appointed by the administration that's in power at the time in that particular city. And the difference
That is
in
correct.
the difference in the law enforcement capabilities between sheriffs and police chiefs is dramatically different. And we see around the country where sheriffs are standing up for the American people, and many in big city, many chiefs of police are bowing to the mayors or the city council about what they want done and that they're trying to comply, whether it's defunding the police or whatever it is. There is a huge difference, and I don't think America understands how much there is of a difference between you as a sheriff and the police chief of a particular city. And it's amazing. It says I did a lot of research on it recently on a story that I'm writing, and I was shocked. And I say this in a positive sense. I was shocked at how much power people like you have in your communities.
Yeah, well, just to make sure you know, I haven't been sheriff for about 28 years. So I'm a former sheriff, but I work with sheriffs all across the country and have done so for the last 45 years. And yes, you're absolutely correct. The sheriff has a lot of power because he gets it directly from the power source, we the people. It's really sad that the difference you alluded to between chiefs of police and sheriffs is quite dramatic, as you said, but it shouldn't be. The thing of it is, though, the chief of police is a bureaucrat. He's appointed by another committee. He's appointed by, and he answers to the town manager or the mayor or the city council or all three of those. He's usually supervised by the town manager or city manager. And yet, the people of this country don't really realize this, but the sheriff only has one supervisor and one boss, and it's we the people in his county. It's we the people. He has no other supervisor. Of course, he has to work with the county attorney. He doesn't work for the county attorney. He works with the county attorney. He doesn't work for the county commissioners. He works with them. And in that regard, he only does the budget with them. And then after that, he doesn't have to report to them at all. But he doesn't. But there is a teamwork idea or program that all of them work together to serve the people. The sheriff is appointed by the people every election, every 4 years, and they determine if he stays or goes every 4 years. This is a very unique concept, but it's also the definition of our constitutional republic.
Right. I want to ask you a question, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to learn from
You
you.
put me on the spot all you want.
I'm sure you've been on that spot a lot of times. I want to ask you this question. We both agree on the differences between the sheriff and the chief of police. But I wonder, would in this immigration problem that we're having today, if instead of having the police and the chief of police working with or against ICE in trying to round up these bad guys, if that responsibility was the sheriff as opposed to the chief of police in the town?
Well, we've put it out to every sheriff in the country that all of them should be helping with deportation. Obviously, any lawman with any common sense does not want these criminals in his county or community. And what criminals are we talking about? The human traffickers, the rapists, the murderers, the robbers, those who just go around indiscriminately beating up people that they see on the street. Even worse, the gangs and cartels and international terrorists who make money by selling children into slave markets and slave trades. The 350 children that were missing under the Biden administration. We might not know their location. In some instances, we actually do. and some sheriffs are actually trying to find them, and some have, but it's been a drop in the bucket so far. But
Yeah,
any
it's
lawman worth his grain of salt wants these criminals out of his community, and yet you have mayors and governors and some chiefs of police who say just the opposite. Well, I want to tell those sheriffs in those counties that they have a responsibility to go against the mayor, the governor, the chief of police, or to invite them to work with him to repel these criminals that were brought in during the Biden administration. And he shouldn't be having Trump do this. He should do it. He has jurisdiction. The people in Los Angeles City, the people in Portland, the people in Chicago, all vote for the county sheriff in those areas. He has a moral obligation and a lawful obligation to stand and get those criminals out of his county, the cities notwithstanding.
so if I might just pursue a couple more things with him, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll let IQ jump in.
Okay, I have had an opportunity to work with a couple of county sheriffs here in Florida, and I am shocked or surprised, I'm not sure which it is, Richard, at the size of some of the sheriff departments here in Florida. It's not uncommon to see 1,000 deputies, or in one case, we have a county that has 1,900 deputies. And it would appear, this is what I'm asking you, it would appear that the sheriff's department, in terms of police, physical police people in place, are the sheriff's departments bigger aggregately than the police departments?
No, they're both contingent upon the size of the population of the area. The gentleman's agreement between chiefs of police and sheriffs is that all law enforcement calls will be handled inside the city limits by the city police.
Okay.
And outside the city limits, it's the sheriff's office. So the sheriff has still quite a huge population, and geographically, it's usually bigger. That he has to patrol
Right.
and take all the law enforcement calls. It doesn't surprise me at all if Dade County, the greater Miami area, or Florida, or Jacksonville, or Tampa, have 1,500, 1,900, 2,500 deputies. They have huge counties, and generally the population of a community is, for every 1,000 people, there's 2 police officers. So that changes, of course, that's the national average. But Maricopa County, right here in the Phoenix area where I live, is the 4th largest sheriff's office in the United States. And they're down about 1,000. Sheriff Sheridan, the new sheriff here, is working his tail off to try to get those numbers back up, but they are very shorthanded. Phoenix PD is shorthanded, and that can create a problem criminality-wise. So we hope that we have a good show of force. Hope we have deputies and peace officers that are trained to protect civil rights, and that is what we preach and teach all across this country. Our main responsibility as a peace officer in this country is, one, keep the peace, but to protect the rights of the people and make sure no one, even if it's other government, that no one violates the rights of the people.
Let me ask you one more question, then we'll go to IQ.
Mhm.
There seems to be a conflict in the country in this sense. The Democrats feel that crime has come down, and the Republicans feel that crime is up. And the question I want to ask you, Richard, is, do you think that Americans today feel more secure or less secure in their hometowns?
Well, certainly the Democrat-run cities in this country are having an exponential increase in crime. And there's no question about that. And sometimes those bleed over into other communities and other states. So I would have to say that it's down. The people well, look at the crime in Chicago, and every weekend there are dozens of murders, shootings, and not all of them are killed, but obviously there's a lot more shootings than there are deaths. But that happens every weekend, and the mayor seems to care less, couldn't care less. The governor, he just cares about Trump not interfering. Not interfering. No, they don't want anybody to interfere with their crime rate, their murder rate. Again, I find that so alarming. That's what I find alarming, is that people who are in charge of protecting society don't give a damn about that because they're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Trump doesn't want to have to come in and babysit your communities. But let's be real here. Historically speaking, several presidents have done this, including John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy sent troops into Birmingham or Montgomery, Alabama,
Yeah.
against the wishes of George Wallace, the governor, because George Wallace wouldn't allow black students to go to the University of Alabama. And in order to protect the rights of the people and stop the segregation, he sent troops in. It was peaceful. He changed what was going on. He protected the rights of these citizens, and he won. And freedom won, and peace won. And so thank goodness that JFK did that. You don't hear any Democrats talking about that now,
Well,
but this is common historical knowledge.
thank you, Richard.
Yes, we've got Richard Mack with us today. Sheriff Mack is with us. We've also got our other guest, John Gordon, with us. Now, John, you've been sitting here listening to Richard. Do you have any questions relating to the topic here? Because I know you're a student of history, my friend, and the laws and everything.
Well, you may have overbilled me a little bit, but thank you for the compliment. I'm just tired of the lies. I just watched an MSNBC reporter, I can't remember her name, talking to Governor Pritzker, and they both said that nobody's calling Donald Trump Hitler. They don't know where it's coming from. Yet there are
Really?
hours of her referring to Trump as Hitler, and they're replaying the reels as we speak. It's just so discouraging that we've lost any sort of a semblance of a collective conscience, that we're all
Yeah.
going to tell the truth and do what's on the right for the American people. But it's demagoguery and narratives, and the narratives can change from one day to the next to suit the flavor of the day. And I'm just so sick of it. I don't know what to do. I really think that we might be approaching a point where we could perhaps have a third party in the United States. I think I would probably be among the first to join. I love Donald Trump, and I ran with his endorsement. I have been considering my political future, and I don't know what's next for me, but I'd really like to run as an independent, because if you run and you get Donald Trump's endorsement, you're beholden to him. And I don't want to be beholden to anybody other than the people that elect me. And that's the movement that I'd like to see us start.
Well, a big amen to that. Yeah,
Probably just a fantasy.
well, politicians have lost their way, and Washington actually warned us that a two-party system would be the bane of American liberty. I would like to see us get rid of parties altogether. I don't want more parties. I want no parties. And people can still run for office. Okay, if 50 people want to run for state senate, so be it. The final two go to the general. Okay? But the loyalty to parties has skewed what's really important in our country, and that is what you just alluded to.
Oh,
And
I
that is
100% agree with you.
true service to the people.
Yeah, and I like the Republican policy and the platform, but I don't think that Senator is it Massey should be chastised for voting his conscience and doing what he thinks is right. Ditto for Rand Paul, ditto for Ron Johnson. But we've adopted this premise that you have to vote the party ticket. You have to show up and do what leadership tells you, or else you're blacklisted and primaried. And I just think it's wrong with in all capital letters.
Get rid of the party. Get rid of the party.
It would
There's
not
just far
upset
too
me.
much scratching your back and I'll scratch yours, and too much deal making, too much quid pro quo. I don't like any of it. And how we would ever get rid of the parties, because those same parties would have to vote their parties out of government. Yeah, and
Well, I think it's going to require an uprising of the American people.
yes.
I do lie awake unhealthily thinking about this stuff. And I was thinking, I wonder if you could start the beholden party and just make it beholden to the people. That's what I want. If I could run for office and I could run on a platform of being beholden to the constituents that put me in office, I would do it. But the way that it's set up, I think it's just a fantasy that both the Republicans and the Democrats would just do everything they could to rub you out like a gnat, and they would probably be successful. I think Elon thought about it. I think the American Party
Yeah, he
was
did.
his thinking exactly like we're talking about. But I think he realized in no short order that it's a challenge that he's not even capable of mastering or conquering.
Well, the base of the party for both major parties wouldn't go along with any of this. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's enough of those to keep us down. Apparently, those who have run for independence or as independents for public office or Libertarian Party. I even ran as a Libertarian once, about 25 years ago or so. You don't get anywhere because the base is already there and it's pretty much monopolized by the Republicans and Democrats, and you can't break through, even though you're a better candidate.
Well,
And so,
Ross
yeah, I
Perot
don't get it either. It's just too entrenched.
Ross Perot came as close as anybody has in recent memory to running as an independent, and he
Yeah, and he
climbed
caused
20.
Clinton to win.
He climbed to 28% in the
Yeah,
poll. He was
yeah,
about to kick George Bush's butt, and
yes.
then someone brought him pictures of his daughter in compromising positions. And he withdrew from the race because he decided that the price was too high and he wasn't willing to pay that price. A month later, he
He joined
rethought
back.
his indecisive decision, jumped
Yeah,
back in too late, and he got 18%. And he cost George Herbert Walker Bush the
election.
election, and it went to Clinton.
Yep.
So,
Ron, let me ask you a question, and Richard, the same question. I understand what you're looking for, but we may have the process that you're looking for already in place in the Constitution, and that is a convention of the states. We take the power away from Washington, and the convention of the states discusses the issues and makes the changes, and Congress has no power.
Mm, if you read Article 5 in its entirety, they have to get some sort of appropriation or approval from Congress to participate in that. And I just I don't think it can work. I would love to see it work. Believe me, I would love to see it.
it
Um,
might be worth an afternoon of putting our collective heads together and pull out the Constitution. I don't think a state's convention has been called in maybe 100 years, but
I
clearly
think that's accurate.
there is a mechanism by which it can be done. I just don't know what buttons you have to push and what the steps
The
are that you
biggest
have to go
problem I
through.
have is that how do you keep it from being infiltrated by others who will make it a runaway convention and destroy our Constitution instead of reinforce our Constitution? That's what I fear.
That's reality.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
that's a bitter pill of reality.
Mhm.
Because we see that in our government right now, that
Yeah,
we call those people rhinos, but there are
yeah.
almost more of them than there are of us. And I watched an
But
interview just last night, and the person being interviewed said that I think it may have been um, uh, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think it was, and she said that almost to a person, every Republican member of Congress dislikes Donald Trump, but they go along to get along. Now that's sad. That is a sad commentary,
Yeah.
and it just shows you how
Well,
really dysfunctional this system is.
I have a personal story about that. When I was sheriff back in the 90s, I actually sued the Clinton administration for overreach and the Brady bill. They tried to force the sheriffs of this country, they tried to commandeer the office of sheriff nationwide to enforce the Brady bill, the gun control law, for them for free without any negotiation. And I was the first sheriff in American history to stand up and say no. What really bothered me when we won, and 6 other sheriffs joined me in this lawsuit, and it was all very miraculous. It was a David versus Goliath story, and in my mind, David only wins in the Bible. Most of the time, he doesn't win, but we won. What bothered me is the political nature of the Supreme Court, and here comes the Democrats and Republicans again. The 5 Republicans sided with me. Justice Scalia wrote the decision for the majority, and the 4 Democrats sided with Clinton. If this is all just going to be politics, even at the highest tribunal in the country, then how are we ever going to get anything done relative to individual liberty, civil rights, and constitutional government? They
Well,
played politics instead of just following the law, the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. So,
well,
and anyway, by the way, I have a review of this case on my website. I would invite everybody to read it because it's the most miraculous case ever. It's the most powerful 10th Amendment state sovereignty case, federalism case in the history of our country.
well, good for you for taking them on. I commend you, and I'll go to your website and read that.
I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it.
Two other.
I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it. That is amazing.
Hey,
That ought to get you a goddamn medal right there, Sheriff.
if
Yeah,
you
it should,
really
yeah.
if you really want some insight into the Clintons, read Roger Stone's book, The War on Women, The Clinton War on Women. And it goes through the entire career of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. And I'm telling you, when you read that book, it is jaw-dropping. It is really discouraging. You know, he was nothing but a two-bit drug runner. He protected
Yeah.
the drug cartels and our own CIA, by the way,
Yeah.
who were using a remote field in Arkansas to drop drugs in. And
Yeah, Mena,
Clinton was
Arkansas.
up
Mena,
to his
Arkansas.
ears.
That's a big time. And there was a movie that Tom Cruise played as a pilot in that whole thing. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So, 2 other strategies that could be employed that I have been reluctant to get on board with term limits. Now I am 1,000% convicted, and I know it's after 5 o'clock, but I hadn't had my
Oh,
martini
you're
yet.
good, baby.
My mind's
Well,
running
I'm with you
faster
all the way on that.
than my mouth can
If
catch
it's
up.
good
Well,
enough
actually,
for George Washington, if 8 years is good enough for Washington, it's good enough for these bozos in there today.
yeah, exactly. So I'm 1,000% on board with term limits. That
Yeah.
would help. And number 2, when I started my career a long, long time ago, there was a tax credit available if you made donations to political candidates. I
Yeah.
say bring that back and limit the amount that special interest and corporations can donate to politicians or 401c or C4s. I mean, it has gotten to be the biggest atrocity I've ever seen. The amount of money that flows into our political system through this device of educational PACs, otherwise known as a C4, is disgraceful. And it is killing our republic, literally. And both parties are equally to blame.
They are.
We need
Uh,
reform.
You know something, Dan and IQ. These guys are starting to sound like progressives. They want to get money out of politics. I think this is awesome. I think this is great, baby. So IQ. Listening to all this, what do you think about all this, my friend?
Both of them are right 100%. They have their own opinions. But I would like to ask the sheriff, when you confront people who are wearing scarves and masks and creating havoc, what is your response? What are you allowed to do?
When who causes the havoc?
You know, when you have Antifa or
Oh,
BLM
yeah. Well,
attacking police officers or
look,
ICE or somebody else.
the sheriff has the responsibility to keep the peace in his county. He also, though, has to guarantee the people the right to peaceably assemble. That's a key word to that. Protests must remain peaceful. If they're not, then he should take criminal action against any of those violating the peace or committing crimes, and especially if they're burning down buildings like they did in Portland a few years back. And the media actually said that it was mostly peaceful and calm and everything's fine. So the sheriff is the ultimate protector of the people. He is in the uh, Constitution of Delaware, our first state. It says in their state constitution that the sheriff is the conservator of the peace for each county. And that's exactly the case. It's always been that way for centuries. I'm sorry, for centuries. The reeve of the Shire reeve, and now the first law enforcement officer in America was a sheriff. 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence were former sheriffs as they worked their way through the political structure back in the colonial days of America. And Thomas Jefferson called the sheriff the ultimate executive of the county. And in my Supreme Court case, Scalia calls the sheriff the Clio, the chief law enforcement officer. So it's well documented that the sheriff is the ultimate authority, ultimate executor of the law in his county. And this was borne out in my case, and it is a historical fact.
So I have to ask you, Sheriff, no disrespect or not trying to be contentious, but where are your fellow sheriffs? Why are they not stepping in and
Oh, you're
arresting
not
people?
you're not hurting my feelings. You're saying what I'm saying.
Okay,
Sheriffs,
good.
where the hell are you?
Where are they?
So, but I will say this. We have trained over 1,000 sheriffs, probably more like 1,200 the last 10, 12 years. That's not enough. And there's 3,086 sheriffs in America. Of those 1,000 that we've trained, about half of them aren't even sheriffs anymore. So the rotation and keeping track of sheriffs is like herding cats. But what I want to do is raise the money to have one big, huge national conference with sheriffs, pay them an honorarium to have their butts in the chair, and then have them unite in what we're talking about. But I work my butt off traveling through every state. I've been to all states. I've done presentations in 48 states, and it's just not enough. We have to do this faster and bigger, and time is of the essence. And so seriously, we've got to raise $3 million to do that, to get 1,200 sheriffs together, pay for their airfare, pay for their hotel, and pay them an honorarium. And so to me, that's peanuts, and drop in the bucket of what the result would bring to America. But sheriffs are victims also of politics and their parties and partisanship. And we just need them to grow a pair and have the courage to stand for what's right, to actually do what they promised when they took their job, their oath of allegiance to the Constitution. And let me tell you real quickly, and I'll make this quick. The tale of 2 sheriffs. Sheriff Chronister in Tampa, in Hillsborough County, arrested Pastor Rodney Howard Brown for having church service in the United States of America. He arrested him for having church. Really? But on the other hand, Sheriff Glenn Hamilton in New Mexico was contacted by a pastor in his county, and he told him, Pastor Cooper said, Sheriff, I am not going to close my church for COVID-19 or anything else. The government does not run my church. Jesus Christ runs our church. I want to know from you, sir, what you're going to do to protect us to stay open. And Sheriff Hamilton his comment should reverberate across America. He said, if it takes me having to go to jail myself, then so be it. But I will do everything in my power to protect you. When the state police came to shut him down, he came out and told them in no uncertain terms that he deputized every single member of that church and that they were under his authority, including the pastor, and that he was requiring them by order of the sheriff's office to remain open and take care of their people. The state police left, never came back, and Pastor Cooper never shut down 1 minute. That's the difference. Now, let me ask you, which sheriff do you want in your county and in your community? It just so happened that Sheriff Hamilton had our training twice, and he knew what he was supposed to do, and he was a man of conviction and courage, and he did his job. That's what we want every sheriff in this country to do.
The tragedy, Richard, is
That's a
that you had
great
a
story.
commander-in-chief. You had a commander-in-chief called Biden who broke every rule of the Constitution. As commander-in-chief, he should have had the borders closed and taken care of. He had it open. On this show, on numerous times, I said he should be put on trial for treason and if found guilty, executed. What do you think?
There's just one problem. An investigation proved this, and all of us know this to be true. He is not mentally capable of standing trial. But all of his other staff, yes. Mayorkas, Garland, his chief of staff, his wife, many of the others should be all prosecuted. Yes, absolutely.
I 100% agree.
Well,
How do we get accountability?
well, gentlemen, as we're running up against the clock here, I want to make sure everybody gets their plugs in. I want to start with IQ Al Rizzoli. IQ, how do we get your books and everything else, my friend?
IQ.
IQ, are you there, baby?
Oh, he's muted. You need to unmute.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah. No. I wanted to hear everybody else, that's why. Okay, my books are in Amazon, Lifting the Veil, The True Faces of Muhammad and Islam. And my articles are published on America Out Loud. By the way, it's been a pleasure to have you, Richard and John, on the show. Thank you.
Please
So
have me.
Dan-
I would love to. I would love to be on any of your and all of your shows.
We should
So-
repeat it then.
So Dan,
Yes.
bring us up to speed on all of your stuff, Dan. Why we've got you here?
My books are available at Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble, or you can order them through your local bookstore. Current book is Sad Eyes, story about a World War II Army nurse who has a tremendous talent to help people. My website is Dan Perkins Media. That's where you can see a lot of my television shows. AM/FM 24/7. You can hear radio shows. And I have a foundation called Songs and Stories for Soldiers. My Irish memoir for the elderly gentleman is coming along, and we take a chapter or two every week, and we're gaining some momentum. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm in the process of writing another book for myself, and I try and keep busy.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome. So, John Gordon, bring us up to speed on everything you're doing, my friend.
Well, we have a weekly radio show on the John Fredericks Media Network, 22 AM and FM stations in 9 cities up and down the East Coast. And then we chop that up and put it out as a podcast. We have great interviews. We've had Liz Peek from Fox News, Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager for President Trump 1.0. We've had David Talbot, an author on the Devil's Chessboard. I'm going to Dallas in 2 weeks or 3 weeks to participate in the 63rd anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination, and a 3-day symposium to talk to academians and authors who have studied it and written about it. We'll feature that on our show. You can also watch us on johngordon.tv. All of our past episodes are there. And you can catch us on social media on YouTube, Getter, Rumble, X, Facebook, Instagram Live every Saturday and Sunday between noon and 2. And you can write me, johngordontruth@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Well, as we wrap up here, Sheriff Mack, take us home, baby. What do you have for us? Where can
You
we
got it.
find
Well, I'm gonna
everything
keep
else?
this real simple. I've written 7 or 8 books, and they're all available at my website. And this is the most important book you can have, and it's the cheapest one. Get dozens of copies of these and pass them around to all your local officials so they can see what this did for America. Folks, CSPOA.org. Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association. We want every citizen to join and become a member of our CSPOA posse. This is a peaceful and effective solution that every American should be a part of. And folks, I'll quote the founding fathers, last line of the Declaration of Independence to close this. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We must do likewise today.
Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you, John. Dan, I will see you next week, and IQ will talk to you on Thursday. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me.